So we got to talk about Miss Gladys Knight. And I always say, I love Gladys Knight. Like, I have my top five. If I had a top six, she'd be on it. The top five is Diana, Dion, Patty, Aretha, Whitney. And then if I had a sixth, it would go right to Gladys. Oh, no. Well, yeah, it would be then a tie in sixth place, Gladys Knight, Natalie Cole. Okay, now that's it. That's my list. That's my list. I'm done. But with Gladys Knight, who I've had a chance to meet as early as when I was producing Good Day Atlanta. I went to interview her backstage at the Fox while she was there performing in Madame Lily. Did you have a chance to see that staged musical she did many years ago? And then I had the chance to be with she and Miss Ross and all the others at Oprah's Legends Ball. She was one of the honorees. And then opening night of Motown the Musical, I had the chance to interview her on Broadway, 2013, I believe that was, Magical Night. All of the Motown artists came to support Barry's Broadway vision of telling the Motown story. And there I am interviewing Miss Gladys Knight. We're talking about her favorites. She loves the Four Tops. And she's telling me about her time at Motown. And she's being positive, which is worth noting. Her experience at Motown wasn't the best. But here she was in good spirits. And right at the moment where I'm getting ready to ask another question, 46th Street rocks. It's like an earthquake.
Yeah.
Berry Gordy and Diana Ross have just arrived. I have to yet again cut Miss Gladys Knight off for Miss Diana Ross. Why did that happen to me? But it did happen, and I love you, Gladys, and I will always love you, and I'm sorry for having to cut our interview short because Miss Ross had arrived.
Well, yes.
I want to hear from you. Your story or any story that you want to share on the iconic Gladys Knight, who I absolutely adore.
Yeah. There are quite a few. I mean, I guess the one, it's hard to pick.
Well, take me back to when you first interviewed her, because I want to be able to time.
Yeah, let me just say that before I ever interviewed her, I think the first time I interviewed her was in 1972. And that was while she still with Motown.
So that was after she left Motown or as she was leaving?
No, as she was still with Motown. That's during the same time period. Yeah. And I still had the interview in Blues and Soul. And that, because what happened is really the great part of this, as I want to say, is that when, as you point out, that there was a lot of times Gladys Knight were not given necessarily the A treatment at Motown, but they've told that story themselves. But here's the thing that happened. She had a little bit of a following. The group had a little bit of a following here, but not much. And in 1966 is when I think they signed to Motown. And then the British Motown office would release different recordings than the American one because they had certain things would work better for the British public. And they released a single. It probably did come out in America, but I don't think it did any business, as they said, for Take Me in Your Arms and Love Me. And it was a massive hit in Britain. And I still can remember it was a very kind of upbeat. You can't hear Gladys Knight in the pitch, not just Gladys Knight. And it led to their first performance in Britain, which I'm pretty much sure was in 1967. I would have to check it for sure. And it was at a theater around the corner from where we had this record shop with Soul City Records. But what I remember, I think the theater was owned by Brian Epstein of the Beatles fame. But anyway, it's a Savile Theater, I remember. And we had never, British audiences had never seen anything like Gladys Knight the Pips choreography. Never. We probably had seen, I wasn't old enough to have seen much of any of it because I was in my teen years at that time. But it was like, whoa. And that was one of the biggest elements of Gladys Knight the Pips as a
Which
group.
is attributable, we should say, to Charlie Atkins,
Yes,
the choreographer at Motown,
yes.
who worked with all the greats on
That's
their stage presence and their choreography and stage movement.
That's right. But all the kind of harmonies, the way they worked out, it was like, whoa, like that. Anyway, so that was the first time I saw them perform. And then, to the interview in 1972, I don't remember the exact circumstances, but it was in London when I was still in London and Gladys was here. They probably performed somewhere, but I don't remember where. Over the years, I got to, interact with Gladys and members of the group, particularly her brother, Merrill. And I remember the interview that stands out the most strongest in the same time period, 1974. Yeah, 1974. The group were in London and they were doing whatever promo they would do. By then they were with, by then they were recorded with Buddha.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And something happened where I was supposed to interview Gladys. I don't know why that happened, but anyway, whatever it was. And the publicist called and said, well, she's running late and we can't do it at the same time. Would you mind going to the hotel? And she's having, doing the interview in person, which I was going to do anyway, but at the hotel rather than the record company. I said, sure. And and Gladys was having dinner in her room. So I had dinner with Gladys in her hotel room. And I mean, wow! At that time,
I have questions. What did she eat? Did you eat as well?
I don't remember that part, man.
Okay. I was getting in there. Okay.
No. Well, it was a posh London hotel, so it probably wasn't. I doubt that I'll be demeaning. There probably wasn't chicken and waffles. Right. It wasn't that. Whatever it was
might cuisine. Florence Ballard says it might have been steak tartare, and she didn't like it. But anyway, go.
It was haute cuisine, as they say. Yeah, she did invite me to eat with her. I mean, it was like come do the interview and just sit. That was very kind, and but for me, in that time, it was not a time when I'd been. I mean, it was before I moved to America, and so I spent a lot of time around artists outside of their, outside of seeing them in interviews and on stage. So it was lovely. The only sticking point, the only time it got a little interesting was when I said, I don't know if I called her Miss Knight. I probably did. I probably didn't call her anything. I just talked to her,
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm interested about one thing. When you had, I heard it through the grapevine come out in 1967. And I remember it was such a big hit. And that was the same year that Aretha had Respect, broke through. And I said, do you think that was Motown's attempt to put you in the same kind of frame? I don't know how exactly said it, but because Gladys is singing out there like that. Her through grapevine is not like a little. It's not. She's singing. She's a pop soul singing.
It's an explosion, and it's a juxtaposition from a whispered gossip to.
That's right. Here's the year that, and I said, do you think that Motown was wanting to position you as their version of Aretha Franklin? How do you think Gladys reacted?
I need to know.
You need to know?
I need to know how she...
I see. I thought you were going to tell me how you thought she reacted.
I don't want to guess. I think she'd be upset.
She was... She was not... She...
Indifferent or upset?
Well, she was like, I don't... she almost gave me an Aretha-ism, but I said, I don't know about that. Because it was like... No, that was not. That was no. I don't think that was what was happening, and it was. She got a little. I guess defensive is not the right word, but she felt like that it was not correct.
Well, I guess clarifying from her gaze, right? She just sort of says, like, it's not my thought. Maybe she could see how you thought it, but it wasn't.
Well, she probably didn't know, because I didn't go into it, that Aretha was still my queen of soul and ever will be, and so that's how I heard it. And I do think, honestly, because I go back and think of that year, and I think that was because who else did Motown have that they could have had that kind of voice that they
No.
could have had?
Yeah.
Here they watch Aretha, Detroit Aretha,
Yeah.
taking over everything. So I mean, I don't know if it was designed that way, but certainly I remember that's how I heard it, and so I presented it to Gladys as a possibility, and it pretty much got.
Kind of
Kind of politely dismissed.
well, I will say this. I love Miss Gladys Knight. One of my favorite moments and memories of her includes her collaboration with two of your other Soulful Divas, Dionne Warwick and Patti LaBelle.
That's right.
The Sisters in the
In
Name
the
of
Name
Love.
of Love.
Such a beautiful thing. We haven't said a lot yet about Miss Patti. Patti LaBelle. I have met her a time or few. Yes, she was also one of Oprah's legends. There was a time, the day that Gerald Levert died, I was scheduled to interview her at her home in Philadelphia, and I thought they would cancel because the news came as I was en route. Yes. But she said I should come on anyway, and was warm, wonderful, hospitable. The actual interview, believe it or not, was about Aretha Franklin. We were interviewing her about Aretha Franklin for an upcoming show in which Aretha was going to be featured, because Aretha was one of Oprah's legends, but she did not attend. And so this was going to be for something where Aretha was going to be honored solo at the Oprah show. If that tracks, I bet that tracks. But all that to say, Patti noticed my pointed toe Versace shoes, and she says, "Boyfriend, those shoes are cute." I said, "Oh, they're Versace." She says, "My boots are Versace." The diva and the divo had a fashion moment. So
I'm sure they did. Hello.
My Patti LaBelle memory. Also, when LaBelle reunited, they all gathered at Splash, which was the big gay club at the time, New York City. This was also during the week that they did their Apollo show, right? They went back to the Apollo, and the power went out, and Patti kept singing.
Oh, yeah.
That was a whole historic moment. And but at the gay
I was
club,
there for that.
Were you there? That was one of those moments.
I was there.
And
I was there.
At the at Splash, they sort of set Patti, Nona, and Sarah in front of the DJ booth, and then when it was time for them to talk to the crowd, they the promoter Nathan Hell Williams went and got them, and Patti took my hand and kind of brought me with them to the platform. So there we were having our "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina" moment. LaBelle, the promoter, and me. I had no reason to be up there, but Patti took my hand and walked me up those stairs. So I walked right on up. Maybe she wanted my escorting, but maybe she just wanted me to be with her. I don't know what it was, but that's my Patti moment.
That's your Patti story,
but mighty. Yeah. But talk about Patti LaBelle.
Well, the thing, she hasn't. I mean, since I've been back in Britain, and she hasn't been here very often. In fact, I don't remember her being here more than once, actually. But the one thing I will tell you about, because it wouldn't be in the book because this is much more recent. I think it was 2012. Anyway, she was on a big show with a lot of other artists, and she was headliner. And I found my way. How did this happen? I don't remember exactly how it happened. Maybe a promoter or something brought me to the side of the stage as she was finishing her set. And I remember she walked down the stairs off the stage. She done all, standing ovation, blah, blah, blah. And she saw me, and there's a great photo. I have the photograph of her. She literally, David! And she hugged me. I mean, like it was a real, like, friend-to-friend hug. Like it was, I mean, like, when you really hug someone. Yeah. And I didn't know you were here, blah, blah, blah. A little chat. And she said, well, This is classic, Patrick.
Tell it.
She says, what I'm about to tell you. She says now, have you tried one of my sweet potato pies? Now, context, in England, we do not have sweet potato pies. They do not exist as anywhere.
Not even pumpkin? Not even pumpkin?
Nope. Well, we have pumpkin pies, but no, they're not popular. It's not like a dish. You can't. In fact, I don't even know if we have any pumpkin pies. I don't remember ever seeing them anywhere. I don't think so.
But
It's a
no
very
sweet
American
potato.
dish. Yeah. So
Yeah.
she, have you had one of my, you have my sweet potato? I said, well, Patty, they don't sell them in England. She said, oh, really? She said, well, you know, they're just flying off the shelf. I said, really? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I said, well, maybe at some point we'll get to have one in England. And she said, yeah. But the thing, I'm going to tell you a naughty one. I'm going to tell you something naughty. So that was that. And we, laughed, joke, blah, blah. So Patty was talking about sweet potato. It just so happened that a few weeks later, I was on a phone call with the aforesaid Miss Franklin. And I said, oh, guess you saw Patti Labelle in London. Oh. And, Aretha could say, uh-huh. So what was Miss Patty talking about? You're like that? Yeah. I said, well, she was talking about the sweet potato pie. And Aretha always had these ideas of doing her own cooking and shows, not show, maybe having her own restaurant, blah blah blah. So
Yes.
mm-hmm. So I said, have you tried one of Miss Patty's? She said, I said, and all there was in that was, I don't think so, because there's unsaid, so we left it, but she did laugh with the
Yes. Oh, look, all of that tracks, and I just think it's a hoot. I remember I asked Aretha after Patti had made her, or was it all of Labelle, or was it just Patti on Empire? Remember that big show, Empire?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And Patti had done it, and then had a birthday party, invited me to the birthday party. I went with my NBC cameras at the time, and I said, if Lee Daniels, who was in attendance at the party, I said, if he asked you to be on Empire, would you do it? I said, Patti LaBelle was just on it, and it was that week. So that it's one of those things where it's like I wouldn't have brought the other diva up, but it was in real time, and I think I had already gotten indication that Aretha was watching Empire. So it's like because I knew that and I knew this, I went on and asked it all. And she says, I heard Miss Patty's doing her thing. She was like, well, she says, but I know I'd go there and turn it out, So I love Aretha's competitive spirit, shall we say?
You could say that.
Awesome. Well, that's great. So, Patti, we love you forever, and looking forward to seeing this. She's going to be continuing to tour throughout 2026.